All right. Oh, is that live? I think we're live. So, well, we're doing a series of interviews, and we're honored today to have Representative Smith with us. And so, I don't want to introduce people. And so, since you're here, would you like to introduce yourself and folks who are in the 4th District who may not know of you, tell them kind of everything about yourself, or not everything, but obviously.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it, JD. I'm Representative Rastafari Smith. I represent House District 62, which is Northeast, Waterloo, Evansdale, Elkhorn, and Raymond, and Black Hawk County. So during the COVID crisis, unfortunately, my community has been made quite popular because of our Tyson's plant here. But we, Waterloo is a beautiful town, 7th largest city in the state, per capita, the most diverse city in the state. So, really proud to be born and raised here. Um, Graduated from University of Northern Iowa. I'm an avid outdoorsman. Right now, I'm wearing a hat that says "Fear the Beard." I have an Italian Spinoni, my pheasant dog. So, we've got to spend a lot of time together with the kids in the backyard, doing some brushing up on this fall season coming up here in about 6 months or so. So we're excited to get out, taking advantage of the time with the family. Heart and prayers go out to everybody who's been impacted by the COVID-19 virus. Knowing that it's going to take our communities coming together to get through this thing, whether we're in the 1st district or in the 4th district. So there's always some beauty in the struggle, and I think the beautiful thing in this will be how united our communities come out of this thing. So I've been really trying to use this time to advocate for people in our community, as well as, to be honest, spend some time with my daughters. For this is the first time in 4 years that I'm not at the Capitol all week. So we had my daughter's 7th birthday a couple of days ago, set up a tent in the backyard and projected a movie on the garage. So while my dog dug a hole under the fence. So it's been a unique experience, but
what do you watch?
blessed to be healthy. So we actually were watching Onward on Disney Plus.
Okay.
Onward. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good story. I couldn't to be 100% honest, I watched the entire thing. So
there you go. There you go. And so you've been down in Des Moines for 4 years now, 2 cycles. And right now, can you give us an update? What you know of? Are you guys going to get back, or what are they saying down there?
Yeah. So hopefully we get some sort of update here soon. I know we have some calls coming up this week. So hopefully there's some updates there. I think with the governor's announcement of planning to make some openings this week, I do think that gets us closer to being at the Capitol. I would say, seeing how some 77 counties across the state are opening up, I do think that increases the likelihood that we'll be back. I don't know if that's a abbreviated week or two. I'm hopeful that we at least get one funnel week, and then 1 week to really work through the budget bills and different policy things that we really need to address for the people of the state of Iowa. I'm hopeful that we get that time. I just have no idea, honestly, of what that looks like and when that will happen.
And for folks who don't know what a funnel week is, do you want to briefly describe that?
Yeah, so a funnel week is basically when we have to get every bill out of committee so that it can be eligible for vote on the floor. So there's a lot of bills that were left in committee that were had a lot of bipartisan support, and just due to the nature of the coronavirus, there was an abrupt halt to session. So there's some really good things out there addressing school behaviors, addressing funding for natural resources and water quality. A lot of things that we have to address that we didn't get the chance to necessarily put the period at the end of the sentence on.
Yeah. So what do you? Did you? I mean, I've only been able to just read a little bit on social media and the news outlets of what the governor proposed today. Have you had a chance to see much about it?
So yeah, so kind of from what I've seen is that the governor intends to open or get back to some sense of normalcy for 77 counties. I know religious gatherings, so our churches, our mosques. Also, she plans to open some restaurants. It seems like if they can adhere to social distancing, as well as some retail, I believe. It sounds like food courts will still be closed. So I think there is some confusion necessarily what that means. And I know for me, I guess I'm a little hesitant. So I guess it's twofold, right? The optimist in me wants us to get back to some sense of normality as soon as possible. But the realist in me also sees that being in Blackhawk County, I know that we are a transient state, right? We go from county to county all the time for jobs, for work, for play. That's just the nature of being in Iowa, right? Is the fact that from Waterloo, I can drive 30 minutes in either direction. I can hunt, fish, rock climb, play basketball, football, whatever I want to do. I can do something in a small section. And I think we can't forget that, because if you look at Woodbury County, right, you're kind of on an island out there. What's to
Right.
assume that you won't come to Des Moines or something like that? And those things not being put in place make me nervous. Um, I do think we need to be aggressive in our mitigation of this so we can get back to normal. But I think not doing our due diligence puts us behind the eight ball, and I don't think we can afford to make a misstep.
Yeah, I mean, three of the biggest outbreaks in the nation right now are in the state of
Mhm.
Iowa, and
Exactly.
it's where I live here in Sioux City. It's where you live, and it's Des Moines.
Yes.
And so like I'm up there too. I want to get back to normal just as everyone else does, but at the same time, like the very next county, they're saying that they don't have anybody, and that's why they want to open it up. Well, I mean, if I'm asymptomatic, and that's one of the hardest parts about this, and if we're not testing everybody, like what's the protocol of me going over there, having dinner with a friend over there, and that just it doesn't make much
No.
sense. And like for us, Sioux City is a unique situation because I know when we talk about Iowa a lot, it's Eastern Iowa or Des Moines.
Right.
Us Western Iowa folks we are kind of out here on an island,
Yeah.
but we have South Dakota and Nebraska right across the river from us, and
True.
the county across the river in Nebraska in South Sioux City, or where South Sioux City is located, Dakota County, they're blowing up as well. I think there's almost 1,000 cases in the last 2 weeks, positive cases in just the last 2 weeks from these two counties. And so
Wow.
I'm very, very hesitant, even though I know folks in Ida County and Sac County, all and Plymouth and Monona around us, they might not be seeing it as much as we have, but like it's here, and it just got here. It's a week and a half, 2 weeks old that
Yes.
we've had this outbreak. And so if I relate this a little bit to the analogy I use is when I was a kid, music took a little while to get here to Sioux City, the popular music. So like I would have a cousin or something that would go to Minneapolis or something. They're like, "Oh, do you hear the song? It's on the radio." I'm like, I don't hear it. And then like a month later, it gets here.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. It takes a little while to get to some of the more rural and more spread out areas. And so I'm just extremely concerned right now. I've been trying to be patient I mean, these are unprecedented times, and but at the same time, like this is tough. Like I don't see how this gets better if we don't have the testing, and I
Yeah.
think that's the one thing that we see consistently that we don't have enough tests. And I've had epidemiologists and infectious disease doctors on here asking about that, and yeah, so it yeah. What are you hearing, I guess, from your constituents over there on I know you're limited with what you can do and get out there, but with
Right.
what are folks saying out there?
Well, I think I would just echo that testing.
Yeah.
Part of my Black Hawk County delegation, we're blessed to have a real superhero with Representative Brown Powers, right? So, legislator by day, and right now working as at a nurse at the COVID clinic, helping run the COVID clinic in Waterloo by night, working like 5 6 days a week, 12-hour, 14-hour days.
Wow.
And the one thing we hear is testing and PPE. And I'm grateful for the governor for what we've gotten, because I don't want to say that we don't
Right.
have anything, but
Right.
I think if we're talking about actually being aggressive and using data driven practices to really mitigate this thing, we need way more testing than we have. If you're
Yeah.
talking about and I use Tyson's as an example because they're a large employer in Blackhawk County that we can trace 80+%, almost 90% of our cases too. So if we're talking about an employer with almost 3,000 individuals, and if we're being conservative, we can say that's roughly 10,000 people that potentially are impacted because of those 3,000. the testing of just those 2,800 is not sufficient. We need to test every family member, right, that they have in their household and see, because if they go out in the community and act as normal, then
Yeah.
we don't really have an idea, or we're spending so much time doing contact tracing that we aren't using our dollars wisely and where they need to go, which is testing people to the fullest of our ability and ramping that process up before we can start opening our state, because we're going to just see this thing start spiraling, I think, again and again and again. Because if I'm stuck in Blackhawk County and nothing's open and I can go elsewhere, if I
Right.
can come to Woodbury County and hang out for a little bit, then people may, and that makes me nervous as well. So I think we have to be wise about it, and I'm not sure that we've done that yet.
Right. I mean, I fortunately am blessed that I can cut my own hair.
Oh man.
but I know a lot of people. I know I hear especially a lot of my female friends are eager to get a haircut, and I see it more and more on social media, and and so like if there's a salon in Plymouth County, I would think a lot of women would go there. They also have the potential to bring a lot of germs with them, and so
Right.
that's where I'm just a little hesitant right now. And as you were talking, Dakota County, which is right across the river in South Sioux City, Nebraska, just reported they have an additional 137 cases, positive cases, which they're at 608 right now, and I believe Woodbury County is at 600. So the difficulty over there, the Tyson plant has refused to disclose the number confirmed from their plant alone, and so which it is not a HIPAA violation if they're allowed to do that.
They are allowed to, they're making the choice to not.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which bothers me, because I think I want that backup, that support from our governor to make them do so.
Yeah.
Because I'm nervous. So me and my father-in-law, right? So I'm born and raised in Waterloo. My wife is from Applington area, right? So we about 20-acre farm, and right now we're trying to make the decision: are we going to be able to do 200, 300 broilers? Are we going to be able to do a couple dozen hogs? Is the market going to be there for us? We're a small family farm.
Yeah.
But if we were to scale it up, I've had conversations with some pork producers who weren't happy at the closing of Tyson's, and that we advocated for them to close.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, the reason they have to close now and get things together so we can reopen sooner than later, because as of right now, what we've seen is this indefinite closure doesn't help us. And for selfish reasons, because somebody who is heavily involved in agriculture and part of my livelihood is tied to agriculture, I need them to have accountability, but also change the way they're operating, so that way we can have a future market.
Right.
If not, then what happens is we're going to keep getting people reinfected back into the building over and over again, and we're always going to be operating at 50% capacity, as opposed to getting us back up to 70, 80% in the next couple of weeks. We can't afford that. So I think I need our governor to have a stronger hand, and for communities like yours in Western Iowa, even more so. It's going to be even more devastating.
Well, and that's one thing. In a crisis, there's also opportunity, and so coming out of this, I'm really, really hopeful that we value what we hear a lot of people talk about, the dignity of work. And to me, what we're really seeing in our food systems is we need to start valuing the workers at these slaughterhouses, and we need to really value the farmers. And because a lot of them are getting squeezed because of market consolidation. It's something I'm really passionate about, is talking about enforcing our antitrust laws, especially in agriculture. But this is something that I'm extremely hopeful for. And there, I do believe that there is a spotlight coming on a couple different areas. One is healthcare, and we're only as strong as our neighbors. And so if the neighbor down the street doesn't have health insurance because their employer doesn't have it, or because they can't afford it or something, that affects the whole neighborhood. And so I'm hoping we start to realize the need for that if we haven't already. And then the other part of it is our food systems, and how important that is, not only here, but across the nation. And it's something that Governor Vilsack always talked about, is we're a secure nation because we're a food secure nation. Well, we're getting dangerously reliant on shipping out things. There's a stat that I saw that really just blew my mind, was 60% of our apple juice that we consume in America is made in China. And I just think of all the apple orchards, even in just the 4th district, you know, and that's all policy driven. They're incentivized to do that. And it's one of those things that I'm hoping that when we come out of this, we really have an opportunity to redefine who we are and what the goal is in all of this.
I think so. I think we will see the value of community much more, right? We have seen how intertwined we are, and I think we've had several instances over the past decade that have really shown us how closely tied we are. But none have hit like this. None have
Well,
been out of right human control in a sense that we've had now. And I'm hopeful that we do see the gaps and we address them. But I'm also hopeful that we take a much more localized approach in securing our markets, right? Because if I'm a local farmer who raises cattle and pork and I have some chickens and also have some vegetables, I can produce and be pretty confident that I can supply a specific demand in my local township, right? Um, Now it's hard now when you get other factors that impact the market. But I think if we have more of those practices, that gives more predictability in our markets, and we're less dependent on things like this. Because I can tell you right now, I was just out at the farm, and the work ain't stopping. Right, the greenhouse is still going up. Right, we're still fixing holes in the roof. I'm still making sure that after a windy day, I got the steel roof back up. So we're doing all those things because that work doesn't stop. And I think our local restaurants and things like that, I'm really hopeful that their first stop is those local farms to take advantage of excess that we may have right now before we're looking broadly. I think the McDonald's, the Burger King, some of these chains will always have a need for some of our larger corporate processing producers, but I would love to see a Steggy's Foods in Cedar Falls, some of our other local meat processors have to expand because there's so much more local demand for local produce.
absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things that I was saying, even before this pandemic, was the need to localize and regionalize our food system and creating food hubs. I think is a huge part of that. If we can create, again, almost all agriculture is policy driven. And so if we, for pennies on the dollar, can invest in maybe like a farm to school, farm to a community college, farm to prison, farm to nursing home, these places where we know there is a market right now, we create that market and then we allow that just to naturally grow based off of that. I think there's a huge opportunity because I always talk about here in the 4th district, we're the 2nd most agriculture producing district in America. And we only have 2 farm to table restaurants. We have farmers not making a dime and so many, we have dozens of small towns losing their grocery stores because Dollar General's coming in where they don't get fresh produce or fresh meat. And it's absurd. You're like, who are we doing this? And I think there's a huge opportunity after this to see the importance of what a local and regionalized food system. And you look at all the farmers who can't go up to Smithfield, can't go to a Tyson, or can't go to wherever. They're in the meat or in the beef industry. There's 50 plants that produce 98% of our meat or our beef in the U.S. If something happens in a plant thousands of miles from here, maybe in Kansas, maybe in New Mexico, wherever, that affects this because we're so concentrated. We need more local and regional so we can have the adaptability and flexibility. And that's, I'm very hopeful that's something that we can do both state and federal.
I think so. I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I think if we move together, then also, the price of doing so goes down. The price of the consumer goes down as well. And the big argument is it's so expensive, and we're not trying to do boutique poultry or always boutique pork, right? It doesn't have to be that, but we do have to make that move so that way there's more longevity for small family farmers. This predictability, and our restaurants can actually feed our communities something that's local, and we know where it comes from and is healthier. I definitely think so. And I think that message goes for everything, even with our schools. I would love to see a more community approach. We've seen the benefit of our schools now, right? They're essential to making sure our students are fed every day. We need to make sure that's reflected when we're out of the COVID crisis.
Right, and you see the rise in Iowa with children on free or reduced lunches, and that security, it just doesn't make sense when we can grow all this stuff, and it just, there seems to be a disconnect. And
Yeah.
so again, in a crisis, there's opportunity, and that's extremely hopeful that we can come out the other end with something along those lines. So, well, I was just going to wrap things up here, but appreciate your time so much, and especially I'm stuck here in Sioux City, so I don't know what's going on in the other areas. You got anything big planned coming up?
Oh man, no, I'm like I said, I'm disappointed I haven't really been able to get out and do much. I know turkey season's it's
Yeah.
I got to get out there soon. It's gonna be. Rob, I just saw. I was texting back and forth with Rob Sand, and I saw he had a nice rooster, so I wasn't too happy with myself. So I got to get busy. But other than that, man, I'm gonna spend some time with the family. Continue to advocate. Stay in touch with how we are moving forward with education. I know a lot of districts across the state are going to be making that transition from the voluntary approach to the required approach. So making sure that we have good resources for parents and families, and also, making sure we're having a conversation on what the fall looks like.
Yeah.
Somebody who believes in prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I think our schools should prepare for maybe a second coming of this thing coming around, but also hope that we don't have to address that. But if so, I want to make sure that all our districts across the state are prepared. And we have over 300 school districts in the state. And I think each one is extremely important to their community. And they're going to need all hands on deck and all state and federal resources to make sure that our students don't have to suffer academically any more than they already have. And then lastly, I do want to bring awareness with the closure of some of the processing plants. We have to be mindful of the individuals who will be now forced into a situation where they do have to shelter in place or quarantine at home. And this population is typically those who don't have a lot of financial resources. So for them to be able to have 10 days worth of food in the house at one time is unlikely. So our food banks, our operation thresholds, all our community resources agencies, we know that's going to put an additional burden on them as well. So any community support we can get, we're always thankful for that. And thank you for our frontline healthcare workers, EMS, fire, police. We appreciate you. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Yeah, and then one thing I just made me think of just the importance of technology, because a lot of the, folks who don't have access, heard a story recently, a woman drove her two kids 15 miles one way to just hang out at McDonald's because they have internet access. They didn't at their home. And we need to be better as a nation. And I know we have over 20 million Americans that don't have access to internet. And that's, I mean, how everything's going towards that way. How are we not improving that on a much larger scale than what we have right now? And so I'm very hopeful for, again, out of a crisis, there's opportunity. And I think this is putting a spotlight on the importance of that.
Well, I think that's why we need somebody like you in leadership, man. I'm excited to do what I can to help, because I do this every day, and to be honest, it's rarely I get to have a conversation that's both productive, but also it can be casual and appeal to the everyday Iowan in a way that it hits our ear right. We can understand what we're saying because we're speaking a language that's comfortable for us, and I think that's important. People want that. People want to be able to connect with the average everyday Iowan American. That is who you are. You might be beyond average height, but you connect to us in a real way, man. And we appreciate that. I appreciate you. I look forward to us being able to chat in person again.
Yeah.
Until then, keep on the grind, because we're much needed at this time, brother. So keep it up. Keep it up, please.
I appreciate it. Hey, it's really good talking to you.
You too.